There's no better education than getting out and seeing the world.
The experiences are what you're going to remember in the long run.
Getting out to see the world has just really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
I know a little bit about a lot of random things, and that's because of travel.
We're going to learn so much more and stay up to date with these destinations.
It's going to help us get even better at building group itineraries.
I'm really looking forward to having great conversations about places.
Welcome to Destination Dispatch.
Hello, I'm Jim Delleman with Group Travel Odyssey. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Destination Dispatch. Before we get started this afternoon, I did want to remind you, if you're just joining us for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All you have to do is click that little button right down there that says subscribe. Also, if you ring the bell, it'll notify you anytime that we do have new content on our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on LinkedIn at Group Travel Odyssey, and you can like our Facebook page, again, Group Travel Odyssey. Well, today we have a very special St. Patrick's Day Destination Dispatch. And to help us out, let me bring on our co-hosts today. First, I'm going to bring on our lead navigator and also the host of Business Navigator, Keith Snowd.
Hey,
Hi,
Jim.
Keith. How are you?
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. We've got our green on.
That's right.
Also, as well as Keith, I'm going to be bringing on the host of Destinations Beyond Expectations podcast, Stevie G. Hey, Stevie.
Hey guys, indeed we do have our green on, and I think we're rocking it pretty good.
That's
so.
right.
Of course.
Right.
Well,
Absolutely.
the reason we have our green on is, as I was saying, it is St. Patrick's Day, but we do have I guess you would say, a St. Patrick's Day themed Destination Dispatch. Today, we are going to be learning all about Ireland and everything that Ireland can offer for your group travelers. Have you guys been? Either of you been to Ireland?
Yes. Actually, we've been there. The most recently, we've been there together.
Oh my! It's on my bucket list. I still haven't been, so I will be hopefully making plans to go soon, especially after seeing all the fantastic things that we're going to be covering today. So
We actually were there right before the pandemic, just a couple of months before, and it was my first time there, and it's just amazing, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Ireland in January. It was great.
Oh, is it nice in January? Decent?
It was actually great. It was perfect. It was great. Yeah.
More mild than I thought it would be in terms of
Yeah, very much so. Very
that's
temperate.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's nice. I guess you can rely on that a little bit more than like where I am in New York, where January is just kind of January. So
yeah, it's that way here in Florida too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't want to hear about it. Well, I do want to get into this and find out as much as we possibly can about Ireland. So let's bring on our special guest. She is the Global Business Development Manager at Live Travel and Tours, an expert about group travel of all kinds. But today she's going to be focusing on Ireland. So please help me welcome Shannan Carter. Shannan.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I should say.
Yes.
Good evening.
And good evening.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well,
I can't say top of the morning to you, so
yeah, exactly. You know, we were all saying we all have our green on in honor of celebrating St. Patrick's Day today, and what better way to do that than to find out more about Ireland? You know, I'll just get us started off. What do you think makes Ireland so unique for group travel?
the people. I think first and foremost, the Irish people are, I mean, there are so many great people around the world, but you go to Ireland and you really feel welcomed. And I just, there's a lot of unique things about Ireland that, you know, we're privy to a lot of things around the world, whether it's Irish heritage, you know, technology, all of these things that are coming, great things that are coming out of Ireland, but the people really make your visit there something extra special. I've never had I've never had a situation where I haven't felt welcomed, and I can't speak highly enough of the fun and just the joy of actually being in Ireland. And everybody's just ready for, you know, to enjoy life, despite whatever the weather might be on the day. could be gloriously sunny, it could not be. I just find that the people are first and foremost one of the great things about Ireland, and its natural beauty and the history, lots of great things. But that's probably my top thing. I can't speak highly enough about the fabulous Irish.
That's wonderful. And you can't go wrong with some of the food and beverages that Ireland has to offer as well. So
they have those, do they? Oh.
I hear. I mean,
somebody told me. No, and I have never had a bad meal in Ireland either.
Yeah.
So actually, one of the most memorable meals that I had, which it's not the traditional what you'd think Irish cuisine would be, was an Indian takeaway in the tiny village of Kells. I was staying at a B&B there, and the owner said, look, go to the local Indian takeaway or takeout shop, order your dinner, tell him, then go up to the little pub and tell him that's where you're going, and they'll deliver it to you, and the publican will give you your silverware and your plates and everything else, and there you go. So sure enough, off to the Indian takeaway I went, ordered my meal, went up to the pub and said my dinner will be here in 15 minutes. And sure enough, it was there, and there was a game of hurling on the TV. And so the publican, we were the only ones there with him and his Labrador, and sat there eating our delicious Indian takeout, watching a hurling game and having the publican tell us all about it and enjoying maybe a cider or two while we were at it.
As one does,
So it's those little unique things that you'd never even think of that you'd be having. It's not, and I was watching the St. Patrick's Day Festival live today, and they were talking about corned beef and cabbage. Wasn't traditionally an Irish meal. It was really originated from the American Irish community and came back. So that was that was interesting. It's not that, but there are some certain, I haven't had a bad meal yet.
Well, that's great. For groups that are planning on coming or would like to come in, how easy is it for them to actually travel into Ireland?
It's really easy. So Ireland has two major airports or points where people can actually access. So there are direct flights from the US into Shannan Airport on the west coast, and Dublin, being the capital, also has probably the majority of the flights, but certainly there are options. And in a lot of cases, and we'll talk about it in the itinerary a bit later, but you could actually fly into one and fly out of the other, so that you're doing a loop rather than having to go back and forth. So really easy. We've had some groups who will take the ferry over if they're on an extended tour from Scotland and arrive at Belfast in Northern Ireland and then travel down into the Republic of Ireland. So there's certain methods, but the majority of groups will arrive by air into either Shannon or Dublin Airport.
So, Shannon, to that point, I've often considered Ireland a good first international destination for a group that hasn't traveled internationally. Do you see that happen a lot? Do you see a lot of groups choose that as a good?
I do, because I work predominantly with English-speaking travellers. There's a safety net in terms of the language. The accent might confuse a few from time to time. I could sit and listen to it all day. But I do agree with you that it's a great destination. If it's not elsewhere in the UK, it's usually Ireland as their first point, and then they will go further afield after that. Once they've got a feel for international travel in that format, then the world's their oyster.
Obviously, St. Patrick's Day is a very unique offering in Ireland. I mean, it's offered all over the world, but talk to us a lot about St. Patrick's Day and how, obviously musical groups can participate in things, but how other groups can participate in St. Patrick's Day. And I'd love to dive into the fact that Dublin isn't the only place that happens in Ireland as well. So,
so St. Patrick's Day is a national holiday. So everything is shut down, and it really is. They've really created a festival around. It's almost a week long. In a lot of places, it's a 5-day festival in various locations, more of the larger towns. But then some of the smaller communities too actually have ongoing festivities around that. So Dublin is the major point for the parade that happened today, and it's because it's the largest parade and also for crowds, etc. But there are a lot of communities who will have a parade or performance opportunities or visit opportunities whilst you're there, and it's really giving you a chance to be part of the local community, whether you're in Cork or you're in Limerick or you're in Waterford or you go to Bray, which is literally just south of Dublin itself. They have a parade themselves. So you have groups, and I'm speaking to the performing groups who apply but aren't successful with their application to the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin. And that's just because there's huge demand for it. And at the moment, they're still working through the backlog of postponed groups thanks to a certain pandemic we won't talk about. But there are other grand parades. There are other great performing spaces to really have a community event. So you could be in Galway, you could be in Kenmare, you could be in Killarney. They may not be as on a grand scale as it might be in Dublin on the East Coast, but there will absolutely be something in every community around Ireland for this day.
Yeah, I love it. And there's so many different communities, as you said, that there's great experiences for. And based on my personal experience, I know between driving from one city to another, there's so many picturesque views of the countryside, of the coast. Can you maybe just talk a little bit more about, Ireland's beauty in terms of its landscape?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, because we're all in green as well, just have this perfect vision of Ireland always being green. But there are certain geographical areas that aren't quite as green, but still beautiful in their own unique way. I mean, the classic is the Cliffs of Moher, which is one of the top highlights. It's probably the number one request as part of an itinerary for its natural beauty. But the cliffs, you've got the farming communities, the agricultural outposts, you've got the ocean, you've got the Wild Atlantic Way on the west coast, which literally runs from the north all the way around to the south, Ring of Kerry, etc. Then you've got a lot more communities, a lot more of the fishing communities as you go around. I've spent some time in Kinsale, just south of Cork, which is gorgeous little town with its colourful houses and things, but it's a fishing community and with its little ports. And I think the beauty is the pristine nature of it. You really feel that you get back to nature there. Even in some of the grander cities, there are so many natural aspects, lots of great parks. There are heritage monuments as well that are protected. And then there are those that are just standing out in the wilderness as you go past. And it's not, we were talking before we started about sometimes a bus will have to stop for a herd of sheep being moved between farms. That's not unheard of. It's not a guaranteed attraction, as it has been requested, I might add. But you've got the agricultural, you've just got the natural beauty of even driving through Killarney and Moll's Gap, through the lakes. You've got the flat parts. You're going through the Connemara. You go up north of Galway up towards Kylemore Abbey and really to the west coast. And that's kind of a hidden gem in itself. It really is just a unique countryside that once you leave the centre of a major town, you really are in Central Ireland, and it's just, it's just magic.
You had mentioned about, the different types of outdoor experiences and things like that, and the scenery that you would see. Ireland has quite a diversity of that, and I think a lot of people would get they pigeonhole Ireland into certain types of things. And the other one that I'm always amazed about Ireland, this is also for the UK, is that how people pigeonhole those countries in terms of food. And, a lot of group tours, there's foodie group tours, there's things like that. And I think that, wouldn't you say that Ireland has quite a diverse food background as well in terms of restaurants and what people can experience in the cities and the countryside, even for groups?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, and absolutely. And it's not, we talked about the corned beef. I've already talked about my curry. But very much local produce. So really that farm to table kind of experience I've found a lot of places, and same for group dining offerings. It's not your traditional, when I say traditional, it could be, a lot of people go to the UK and they want to do the fish and chips. You can have that. That's fine. But looking at the balance of meals from the nourishment perspective, and you have quite the variety across Ireland in a variety of venues and restaurant types. So one evening you might be at you might be at the medieval banquet in Bunratty or Napwell Castle. You might be having, Colcannon and a whole range of other great Irish, traditional, whether it's a stew or you're having soda bread with something, you are having a great variety of your meals. It's not the same each step that you go to. And I think a lot of groups are looking for that variety. And if there's a traditional, if there's a traditional dish of that town or that area that they'd like to experience, provided it's not completely chili focused, which I haven't found in Ireland, but in other countries around the world, then it's safe for a group. So, but very much the fresh produce, the opportunity to sit down and have a hearty meal. I haven't had a group say they've gone hungry yet. Would be kind of.
And that's saying a lot if you have student performing groups, because they're always hungry. So
yes, every hour of every day. Yes.
Yeah, I find the mix of a good hearty meal with a lot of fresh air and time off the bus, actually experiencing the place. Even if they're just walking through Central Galway, or they had a stop somewhere along the way, if they were driving from, I'll say, Kinsale to Bantry, for example, on the west. And even you could have a packed lunch for them. So some of these destinations may not necessarily have a restaurant nearby. And that's the one thing to think about with larger groups, is that sometimes a packed lunch to take with them to have on a stop en route somewhere is actually the better option than trying to find a restaurant that can accommodate such a large group. And because you are going through a lot of smaller communities, there may not necessarily be a venue that can accommodate 150 in the one sitting. So you have to actually manage how that group has their meal and possibly do it in shifts. And that's just a locality thing.
Plus, if you run into the sheep, you'll have something to do while you're waiting. So.
I thought the same thing. Well, this is fantastic, and we want to continue the conversation, and we will be back in just a few moments. But first, we want to hear a quick message about our partners.
Group Travel Odyssey would like to take a moment to thank our amazing partners, including Book My Group, Travel Advocates, We Travel, Broadway Inbound, and Fly My Group. These partnerships help make business without boundaries possible, and we encourage our viewers to learn more about these wonderful companies. Now, back to Destination Dispatch.
Okay, welcome back. And to continue our conversation, we have found out about some of the high points and some of the things that we must do when we bring our groups over. But why don't we go through a sample itinerary of what the groups can expect? And so I'm going to turn this over to Keith and Shannan, and they're going to take us through a multi-day itinerary of what your groups could expect traveling through Ireland.
Okie dokie.
Hey, so Shannan, we're going to start off with you sent us a map, which I love, and I love maps. So
sorry, Keith, I said I like to give our clients a map to get, sometimes the demands or the requests from clients come in asking to go here, 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 and here in a kind of a roundabout way. A map is a really good visual way to share with your clients the actual distances and why you're either going in a certain routing or some of the challenges that go with that. So I try to give a map with every itinerary where possible, just because I find it helps explain to people, the logistics, because sometimes we forget about it. You just think Ireland is a small little country, but it does take time to travel around. I mean, I've driven the perimeter of it and a lot of the interior myself. So, this is quite a condensed itinerary that I probably, I'd make some changes to, later on.
Well, and like you said earlier when we were talking, in comparison to what some people in the United States or other countries, even Australia, are used to, it is a small space. But the difference is a lot of those small spaces don't have access of a freeway, and so you're on a 2-lane road, or sometimes a 1-lane road, and you get stuck behind a tractor or a farmer or something like that, and it's going to take you a while. So you have to make sure you accommodate for those things. So this is really a great perspective when I look at it. It's awesome.
And if I can so the Shannan Airport, just for those who aren't sure, is on the west coast. It's kind of circling it now. So that's one entry point, or versus Dublin on the east. That's kind of your entry point. And to actually go from east to west in a coach, like there is a direct motorway, but to go east to west will still take you 2.5 to 3 hours on a coach. So even if you arrive in Dublin and you're heading west because your program, that's what, depending on your dates and if you're in the parade or you're doing other events or other experiences, that's how you have to travel. Then, accommodating all of those aspects is really important. I didn't put the road in here because the itinerary we're going to talk about starts from Shannan. So if you are going, I haven't come across an itinerary that does not include the Cliffs of Moher, and it really is worth seeing. But if you're able to fly a group into Shannan, it cuts your travel time down. Not every group can do that, of course, which I do understand, and we can make adjustments for that. But certainly, that's kind of the area. And Galway's just a little bit further north of there. And again, it's not all motorway. You are on local roads. A lot of them are only, 2 lanes. Occasionally, you'll get a 4-lane road, but it's not very often. So just keeping in mind some of the distances and things like that. And you can Google Map everything and anything, but also in a coach, particularly in Ireland, you need to have extra time. You can't just go, oh, well, the map says it's going to be 100 miles, so that should take us X amount of time. You need to add another half hour, 45 minutes at a minimum to that journey, because the bus is also speed limited to a slower speed than everybody else. And whilst the road says you could do 100 kilometres an hour, there is no way on God's earth that you actually want to drive at 100 kilometres an hour on that road, just because the hedges will come right to the edge and you can't see if there is a tractor around the corner. So the safety aspect, not trying to rush through an itinerary just to say you saw some things that somebody else has already seen and recommended.
Right. Absolutely.
It's probably my harshest point, but I think it's an important point to remember, particularly in going to Ireland, that there are so many wonderful things that it's almost that, let's pick this trip this year, and then another time when we go back, let's do something else. Let's go discover something else. And there are some key points that you do want to show to people, but not trying to do it all in one hit is kind of that.
Well, I'll jump to the itinerary.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, this is just what our typical itinerary would look like, and this is only a brief sample for a group on a very tight time frame who would be coming to St. Patrick's to march in the St. Patrick's Day parade. And if I can just briefly talk about that, the parade itself is highly competitive for spaces. We were excited to see a group we've been working with for a number of years now actually march today, 2 years behind their originally planned schedule. So it was very thrilling to see that, as well as all of the other marching bands from around the world that were able to participate. But having said that, for the next couple of years, there is a backlog, and the festival team have done an awesome job in trying to accommodate as many people moving around as possible. But there is quite a backlog, and now that it's almost, there's a 2-year preparation period for your application. So just keep that in mind as people are thinking about that. That's their end goal. There are other opportunities in Ireland for you to participate in St. Patrick's Day, not just the Dublin Festival. And the other thing with the Dublin Festival is that they've created more events 4 groups around the festival in Dublin. So trying to do the rush trip here and there, we need to consider adding an extra day or 2 in Dublin, or maybe losing something else along the way, particularly for the performance-focused groups. So this day 1 is arriving at Shannan Airport, so on the west coast, and then heading north to Galway. And traditionally, we're not putting too many things in on the first day because, subject to flight arrival times, clearing customs, bags and instruments and everything else arriving, that can just take some time. And plus, when you've been sitting on the plane for a while, the last thing you want to do is sit on the bus for another extra, few hours at a time. So having the opportunity to get out and start to get a feel for the place, and really heighten the excitement as you arrive in Galway, a lovely seaside village area, and it's spread out too. So Galway, there's Galway Central, and then there's further south as you head towards Cliffs of Moher or around. So it really is a beautiful little city, and not too many high rises, thank goodness. And so this particular itinerary is just showing you how it might look leading into the parade. Again, everything around your dates, so you may come a little bit later. Some groups are arriving the day before. It just depends on where, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, actually falls, because it will be on that day. It won't hold it off until a weekend. It happens on that day. So always breakfast at the hotel, and then Cliffs of Moher is about an hour and a half drive south of Galway. And we're moving more towards the minimum number of nights in a hotel being 2. So whilst this itinerary is showing you Galway and then we're off to Limerick, you could also just go to Shannan Airport and stop in Limerick, which is only a short distance away, and actually do the Cliffs of Moher in reverse. So there's always opportunities. And again, it just depends on the time that you have, again, your budgets, but also what you're looking to achieve for your tour. And then Bunratty has the folk park, sort of old Ireland. There's also the castle, and you can do medieval dinners as well, either Bunratty or in Napog. They're both 14th century, so you could actually have a banquet with a group, and there's entertainment and there's music, and it's not just for music groups; it's for every kind of group. I think
Shannan, this itinerary could be, if you're not a music group, you could actually follow this itinerary and just attend the St. Patrick's Parade, right?
Absolutely could. Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that's the beauty of Ireland. It's not just for music groups to go there. It's for any kind of group. You can even have, a while ago I was working on a STEAM or a STEM program, more importantly, because Cork is also quite a centre for science and technology, pharmaceutical. But there's conservation programs, there's science and tech, there's a whole range of different things that Ireland has to offer. This primarily was just, we were talking St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, absolutely.
But you are correct that it's not just music groups for Ireland. So, yeah. And then Bunratty, and then into Limerick. And again, it's giving you time to experience the country without going bang, 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 bang. I have to see this. I have to tick that box. I have to see those things. It really is giving you an opportunity to experience Ireland. It was 2012. I have to get it right because I've got it wrong. But Limerick was actually the European Capital of Culture a few years ago. So they did a great program and really had some wonderful opportunities for all visitors of all types. You can visit, the castle, St. John's Castle, King John's Castle, I should say, but also just walking around. I think we used to learn limericks as kids, kind of the fun little, spiels.
And
I can't remember any good ones right now, but.
Well, and Stephen was talking about, speaking of performing, Stephen was talking about when he and I were there just before the pandemic. Wasn't Limerick where that cathedral or church was, Stephen, that it was just, I can't remember how old it was, but wasn't that the one that had the chandeliers were still lit by candle?
Yes, I believe that was it. Yeah, and the name escapes me on what that cathedral was, but they were very open to performing groups, and I remember that. Yeah.
And the acoustic in there was amazing. It was just like, even for an instrumental group, it was really incredible. Anyway, that's all I remember about Limerick. I got to remember the name of that church.
And Limerick can be very, and I'm not going to offend anybody, I hope. You kind of drive into Limerick and go, oh, it's unassuming, but there are some hidden gems, just like you've spoken about, that you can actually, there's quite a fair bit to see and do in the area. So we'll just move on. A lot of groups ask to go to Blarney Castle, and Blarney Castle is, it's an hour and a half minimum drive south of Limerick. So you're heading back, it's only a short distance from Cork. So right down the bottom, you're quite close to Cork there. So that's the distance you're talking. When you want to go to Blarney Castle, it's not, you could do it in a day, but it'd be all on the bus and then see it and then go home again. But Blarney Castle itself is great. You can have some groups perform there. They even have climbing, and to be able to kiss the Blarney Stone, they removed that for a while, and Ireland only recently opened up completely. So there's no other restrictions on travel, which is a great thing. But actually kissing the Blarney Stone wasn't allowed during any of the COVID periods. But now it's back, and I've seen videos of the groups doing it now, and it's quite I don't know if either of you have done that.
I have not. No.
No, I have not.
Quite a scary experience for you're kind of leaning back to kiss the stone on the wall, and the elderly gentleman there's holding you down while you're kind of leaning back, and
Hope he doesn't drop you.
You are going up centuries-old stairways, and there's a rope to help you navigate up. But you're talking small steps, whatever, and it's circular. But the view is fantastic once you get to the top of the tower. And they've got gardens. They even have the medicinal garden of the plants from medieval times, where the plants the nightshades you might use to top somebody off or whatever. It actually has, these are the plants you don't want to touch.
Right.
But the grounds are beautiful, and walking around the town. So Blarney Castle, and then off to it's quite a drive back up to Dublin, as you can see.
Oops.
Now we're going out to the Ring of Kerry. Yeah, and you need a full day.
I got all excited with my cursor there. So it's this distance right here.
And I do digress that there are groups who ask to go to the Ring of Kerry, and that is perfectly fine, but you need to allow time for it. And also large coaches cannot manage the road because there's lots of little twists and turns and nooks and crannies, and so it really is, there are group bus size limitations on that, but that really is a day or two that you need to allow to include that in any itinerary. Arriving into Dublin, now most groups who come to Dublin, Dublin is a major European hub for a lot of businesses and financial groups as well. So central accommodation in Dublin can put your budget at the top, on some occasions, depending on time of year of travel. There are lots of great group options just slightly out of the centre of Dublin, and particularly if you're coming with a performing group, that will be your best bet, because you've got the space, for instrument storage particularly, but there's also some space for some rehearsal, and some groups have almost taken over one of the hotels. So, it just depends. But where it says area, it could be anywhere within 30 to 45 minutes from the direct centre of the city. And that's kind of there. But you've got the big park, you've got Phoenix Park, St. Stephen's Square. You've got a whole range of beautiful place, and it's a green city. And you've got the River Liffey, and there's a great vibe. Or the Irish are great to have fun with, shall we say. So yeah, I think you're entertained because they love a good conversation and good crack, as they call it. A good time. And it's CRAIC, by the way. A great day tour from Dublin is to go to Kilkenny, or actually have a couple of days in the area around Kilkenny. But Kilkenny is also one of the cities that has a particular festival around the St. Patrick's period, and it's called Tradfest. So it's a lot of groups, but also a lot of individual art and music artists coming, and it runs for a period of time. So groups can perform as part of TradFest. And one of the great photo ops, I guess, is finishing up with the group in front of Kilkenny Castle. But you'll actually be marching through the town. A lot of the local school kids will come out. Schools will bring, everybody out, depending on the day of the week. If it's, midweek, a lot of the schools will come out to cheer you on. But certainly it's an actual festival in itself, and it is all part of the greater St. Patrick's Festival Kilkenny, St. Patrick's Festival Bray, St. Patrick's Festival Dublin, and so on. But certainly, and it's beautiful there, and it really is a lovely town that is safe too for groups when you do have some free time. Some groups like free time for their travellers, and that it is a safe space to be able to say, now you've got an hour or two, off you go. There's plenty. They won't be short of a tea room or a place to eat. Or a place to shop, but also just to enjoy, just being around, enjoying the gardens. So, and then back to Dublin, and then Trinity College is always high on the list to see the Book of Kells and the Long Room, which is the library, which literally takes your breath away. One thing that is to be noted, the Book of Kells, where it currently is situated at the university, the library is... you enter into the Book of Kells exhibition, and then you go upstairs and come out into the Long Room, which is the library, and it is, thinking Harry Potter, it's stunning. But they are having to undergo a major refurbishment, which is due to begin next year, and it's going to go for 3 years. Wow. So the Book of Kells exhibition will be in a slightly different area, but to be able to see the Long Library, that's not going to be possible. So some of those visits will be changing, as well as how groups are managed through that, in terms of group ticketing, timed entry, those kinds of things. So as they get closer to time, for starting in 23 through to 24, 25, they're hoping to finish earlier. But again, there's a significant amount of work that needs to be done for that. And it's for safety, it's for the protection of the antiquities, everything that's in there. Because if you've seen it in person, you know what I'm talking about. You can find pictures of it. It really is something stunning. But that's one attraction that may need to be rethought for various group itineraries. Alternatively, there's EPIC, which is the Irish Immigration Museum. Definitely worth a visit, because it's talking about the Irish influence throughout the world. Irish immigrants went everywhere. They've had major impact on the world and how we run. And we all Patrick's Day. So,
well, and I think that's another reason why I think Ireland's such a great destination for people coming from other countries, is because there's so much connectivity to the Irish heritage in so many people's lives, because the Irish did immigrate. They were everywhere, and so a lot of people have Irish background in their lives. So, correct. There's a lot of connectivity to your personal life. Yes.
That's it. So, and in this particular itinerary, a group is performing in St. Patrick's Day. Now, that's a whole day thing from, the parade. Usually they step off just after 12. I think it was about 12:15 today. But, they can have up to, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands lining the street. But I believe there are about 8 bands that perform today, but they ranging, from about 50 people to about 200 or 300 people. So, but they also have a event the night before. But again, I mentioned earlier that they've also, the parade team have actually created additional performing opportunities around the festival. So it's not just this one day. There will be other days either side that we will be able to have groups include in their itinerary. And that's a new thing. So that is a new thing. And then traditionally, if we finishing with the Irish night, so it's a full healthy meal, a very filling meal, some Irish music and some Irish dancing. I don't know anybody who's left without a smile on their face from having such a great time. The only challenge is that a lot of the flights back to the US may leave a little earlier than one would like. So it's an early night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's, Ireland, as you said before, Ireland is not just for music groups. It's not just for performing groups. You could have a STEM background, you could have an arts background, you can have a literary background. So we've actually had groups do literary tours because there's great poets, great writers. So there is a whole range. If you think Ireland, it doesn't have, I don't think it has what I need, ask the question.
Yeah.
And then let somebody design it for you.
Yeah, if you like history and nature, all of those things I think can be accomplished in Ireland, and you'll have more choices than you have time to get to probably in your itinerary.
And if you are in an area, I mean, I've had groups who live in mainly agricultural regions who want to go and look at, either farming methods or just to meet other like-minded people and see what their environment is, and actually go to the farms or see the falconry, and the birds of prey, or be in the Lake District, and even nature walkers, geologists, even studying the stones as you're going through. There's a whole range of things, and history will be around every corner, and your tour manager and your local guides who you'll meet. Nobody's ever short of a story in Ireland. So,
I mean, you mentioned Kinsale. I on my next trip, I just want to spend 3 or 4 nights in Kinsale. Like I loved it. It's just it's such a great place, and there's so many places like that in Ireland that are so unique.
In that part of the world, Kinsale particularly, I spent a week there. So my family heritage, we had an international family reunion back in 2014. We had about 40 people from around the world come, from our genealogy centre in Kinsale, but we're actually, the family heritage is in Menane Bridge, which is just a small little community outside of Kinsale. Some of the best cider in the world comes from that part of the world, just quietly.
I said, Stephen, Jim, I'll meet you at the airport.
I still look for it. I go, do they have that brand here? Can I get that here? But there's a lot of little seaside communities with, great pubs with good food, really good food, and opportunities to get out and just be part of that community. But Kinsale particularly, because it's so close to Cork, and then you can actually go to Cove up on the hill, and its cathedral is something as well, and groups can perform
it's gorgeous. There. Yeah.
But it's also where the Titanic set sail from. It was its last stop before it went across, and then you've got the migration centre and everything else. And so there's quite a history in that southern part of Ireland too that a lot of people don't get to see. So be open to new experiences. I say.
Yeah.
And if you want to go to Ireland, you go to Ireland.
Well, and I like the fact too that this is not. This itinerary especially is not taking you to one city and you're just kind of staying around there. You're seeing a lot of Ireland, and that I think is essential. You don't know when you're going to be going back again. So see as much of it as you possibly can and immerse yourself in the culture, in the history, in the beauty of it. And, allow yourself to just try these new things and experience new things. And that's and
on that point too, just even though this was based around St. Patrick's Day parade in Dublin, and we have talked about other performing opportunities, if your end goal for your group is to travel to Ireland for a performing opportunity, they exist in bucket loads. So it's not just centered around that one event. So keep that in mind, it is a great, if you want to show your groups that opportunity, and it's student groups, but it's also adult groups. We've had adult choirs travel. There are so many, and lots of opportunities for local interaction. So the cultural exchange and actually having an exchange with a local group. So those opportunities exist, and they love it.
I actually think it's easier to find a performing group or performance in Ireland than it is in the United States, to be honest. A good performance location. I do, honestly. I think you could probably say that about several countries, to be honest. So, this is great, Shannan. Thank you so much for sharing it.
You're welcome, but thank you for having me to share with you.
Absolutely.
It's now got me dreaming of where I want to go next. So, I'm all I might be done with.
I think maybe our next retreat should be in Ireland. So
Yeah.
We can arrange it. But also, just quickly, some groups also try to smush in a bit of Northern Ireland whilst they're there. And yes, you can get to Belfast and do some of but you need to allow time. So, whilst this was a 6-day itinerary that we talked about, if you can push it out to 8 or 9 days, which is, I know, a long tour for many, or we can condense some of the other activities, or it's really picking out what the true highlights are and then working with that. But you can't do this itinerary and include any kind of Northern Ireland, because there's some fabulous things there too, in 6 days. It's just not possible.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, but thank you. But get these to Ireland is all I can say.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And Shannan, if they wanted to find out more or reach out for more information on Ireland and itineraries, how can they do so?
Well, you can contact your travel provider. You can contact our friends here at Group Travel Odyssey. You can contact me for any information at Live Travel and Tours. You'll be able to find our contact emails there. Otherwise, it's Shannan, SHANNAN at livetravelandtours.com, and go from there.
That is fantastic.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can find you can find us. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks for sharing all of this information. I know this is a bucket list trip for me, and I know these other gentlemen have been there, so I will let you know when I'm coming over. So maybe you can meet me there, and then we'll go around together. Absolutely.
I think a long France, UK, Ireland trip sounds lovely. What do we get for that? Shannan, a month?
It's recorded.
I think we need a good 2 to 3 weeks on that one, don't we?
Easy. I can't wait to put it together. I'm going to get started on it right now.
Okay, sounds good.
You let us know when it's leaving. I'll be there.
All right, but thank you so much for having me today. I've loved it.
And Shannan, thanks for joining us. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, take care.
And, just a reminder that if you haven't done so yet, and we've been reminding you, but please make sure to follow us on Facebook. You can like our Facebook page. You can follow us on LinkedIn at Group Travel Odyssey. And also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. So make sure you find us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and you'll be notified anytime that we do have new content on our YouTube channel. As well as that, just a reminder, on Tuesdays, we have GTO Coach and Go every Tuesday at 2 p.m. And we bring some more insight and information on how you can use your GTO system better and more efficiently. As well as that, Keith, can you give us a little bit of information on Business Navigator?
Yes, I can. And the next one will be coming up. I'll be announcing that next week when the next Business Navigator is coming up, and the topic, and start working on who's going to be our guests. So that'll be toward the beginning of April, and I will get that information out next week. So look for it in Jim's update on Tuesday, and we'll go from there.
Sounds fantastic. And Stevie, how can they find you? How can they find Destinations Beyond Expectations podcast?
Absolutely. So I host a podcast, Destinations Beyond Expectations. We have new episodes every single Friday. Tomorrow's episode is one I'm really looking forward to. Keith, I think you enjoy a good bourbon, right? Do I have that right?
Oh. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
This one's perfect. I'm sitting down with Kendall from the Life Half Full travel blog, and we're talking all about how bourbon is driving tourism into Kentucky. It's a really great episode. We get to learn about all these different distilleries. Kendall does a great job of talking through everything. Both distilleries on the Bourbon Trail and off the Bourbon Trail too, because there's like this official Bourbon Trail. You'll have to listen to the episode. It's a good one. You can visit dbetravel.com, which is the official website of the podcast, or listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you get podcasts. And really quick, while I have the floor here, I just want to say two things. I want to second what Shannan was saying about great food in Kinsale, because Keith, I don't know if you remember or not, but I believe we ate at Jim Edwards Pub there in Kinsale.
Yes, we did.
Right. And it was absolutely delicious. And then Also, St. Mary's Cathedral was, I think, the cathedral we were talking about in Limerick. Does that sound right?
You're right. That does sound right. Yes, that does sound right. So, and I since you pivoted, I'm going to pivot to back to the bourbon for a second and give a shout out to one of the GTO members. I went out to visit Jeremy Va at GL Travel recently, and Jeremy knew how much of a bourbon fan I was, and he took me out in California where he lives. He took me to this little. It was actually a liquor store that had a bar set up for bourbon tasting in it. And he took me to a bourbon tasting. I have never seen anything set up like that in my life. Anyway, so I'm giving a shout out to Jeremy because he's a big bourbon fan too. And I'm hoping he's listening so that he listens to your episode tomorrow. So anyway.
Great. Awesome.
That is fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining us. And don't forget, we will have another destination that we will be featuring next Thursday at 2 p.m. So Destination Dispatch will come back again next week. We thank you for joining us and have a fantastic week.
Thank you for watching this episode of Destination Dispatch. We invite you to stay connected with Group Travel Odyssey on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And be sure to check out more of our media, including GTO Coach and Go and the Destinations Beyond Expectations podcast. Please visit our website, grouptravelodyssey.com, where you can learn more about GTO and request a demo. Group Travel Odyssey, business without boundaries.